So I only have the, you know what, I can put on the VLC thing today, because why the heck not, it's not blocking anything. I only have the soundtracks for the games we've played so far queued up. And you know what, I actually do not have the soundtrack to Donkey Kong Land 2 downloaded at all. I wonder why that is. No, really, I like the, I don't think I do, let me check, but I'm pretty sure I don't. I like the 8-bit versions of the songs, I do. I just, I don't know, that game does not have the greatest soundtrack variety. So I feel like I would never go out of my way to, like, listen to those versions versus listening to, you know, like, the actual Donkey Kong Country 2 versions of the songs. And, you know, at least Donkey Kong Land 2 has, like, plenty of totally original music. I mean, Donkey Kong Land, the original, has plenty of original music, so I have that soundtrack on here, but yeah, so basically I just have a 3-game OSTs here, even though we've played 4 games so far, so whoopsies. Sorry, Grant Kirkhope. We'll listen to your stuff plenty soon enough. Yeah, just have like 20 different copies of it. Alright, so, the deal today is that we're just gonna be talking. So get to talking, everybody. No, I have things to talk about. I actually thought of a whole bunch of things I wanted to talk about today, but, I didn't write them down, so I'm probably not gonna, like, remember all the things I had in mind, but, I'm gonna put my snake necklace on, because, bracelet, sorry. It's reptilian. It's reptilian themed, even. It's not like, you know, it's scales. It's technically a snake thing, but you can pretend it's a crocodile related thing if you just don't look too closely. Okay. I should put my hair like behind me so you can actually see my shirt. So basically my, you know, desire for this episode today is I was going on this trip and I knew when I got back from this trip I wasn't going to be quite ready to immediately jump into playing Donkey Kong Country 3, so I wanted to just have a little like between chapters episode where we just kind of take a look back at what we have done so far and also like the project in general and reminisce on things and maybe have a chance to like catch up on any topics or conversations or anything that we had along the way, like any questions, any thoughts that we don't have a lot of time to like necessarily adequately explore while I am like actually playing a game, because it's a little distracting sometimes and hard to like get into like super in-depth conversations when you're actually playing a video game at the same time. So but I wanted to yeah, it is, I am indeed wearing like a blasphemous bracelet right now by wearing a Radley bracelet, but you know, we love Radley too, so so, you know, the big news that's happened since our last episode that we had is that they are finally, after all these years, it's finally happening. I could, like, barely believe the news when I saw it because, you know, Nintendo just drops unexpectedly their like, announcements out of nowhere on social media, and, you know, this is something that people have been talking about for years and years, like, when is this gonna happen? And it's finally happening. They are putting DK64 on the Nintendo Switch Online. So that is gonna be very interesting because the NSO is actually, like, in my experience, it's like really actually good at getting, you know, people who have never played these older games to play them for the first time. I know a lot of people who, or I know at least of a lot of people, I've heard it, I've seen it, you know, who had never played, say, the original Donkey Kong Country games, until they played it on their Switch, because there's, you know, such an easy, convenient way to play them on the SNES service there. So, you know, the thing is, less people have the expansion pack with the N64 games on it, so not quite as many people, like, immediately already have access to those. So it's a little bit of a smaller audience, but still, plenty of people do have it. And lots of people are going to be playing DK64 for the first time. Especially lots of younger people who weren't even born when the game originally came out. Yes, it was on the Wii U Virtual Console, but, like, nobody had the Wii U, and you have to, like, buy it instead of it just being, like, part of a subscription service you might already have. So this is like the biggest chance officially that DK64 has been back in the limelight since it was released, really. So that's interesting. A lot of people are going to play it for the first time and be like, this game's trash. Why do people like this game? But that's okay, because it is trash, but I do like it anyway. Yeah, I'm really interested to see how the game runs and if it runs too well, which is the big problem that it might run into. So the thing is, when it comes out next week, or in really just 3 or 4 days, I am going to have to play it. Possibly on stream, possibly off stream, it depends on how much time I have. But I am going to have to play through it real quick, I think, because I am going to be called upon to give my expertise on it. So I need to at least have, like, I don't want to roll into the podcast being like, yeah, I haven't even played it on the Switch Online yet, because that's what the podcast is going to be about. So I have to play through the whole thing. And that means that I'm going to be playing through the entirety of DK64 a total of 3 times this year, at least. I say at least, I don't really know what other occasion would come up. If I play through it on NSO, and then I play through it for the Kronology, and then I play through it for my annual one-sitting thing, then that's 3. I don't know what other things would come up, but maybe. I can't rule anything out at this point, you know? Yeah, they're finally putting Tiki Tong, and don't forget Tiki Goon, who is more important, because it's time to goon in June on 6/9, and I'm looking forward to it. But the Tongversation. Let me open my special drink that I have for today to get my brain. So the reason I started late today, unfortunately, is because I woke up feeling like crap, and for a specific health reason. But I don't want to get into it too much. But so I'm like, my brain is running a little bit behind today. I wanted to get up early, you know, shower, be all good to go, but instead I slept much later than I intended. My hair is like still a little wet, which is why it's kind of like a little frizzy, but it is what it is. Here we are. Sorry, I'm trying this new, like, these like healthier sodas, and trying to figure out which flavors of them I like. And I had the strawberry vanilla one yesterday when I was playing Pokemon Stadium last night, and it was really good. This is a cream soda, and I feel like it's gonna be okay, but I think the strawberry one was better. Well, they don't need to shower, because they just go for a nice swim, you know, in the swamp, of course. Well, according to the novelizations, they're all, like, slimy and squishy at all times and make squishy noises when they walk around, so they're a bunch of slimy fellas. So, I'm just getting... If I had not showered, I would have been more accurate, I guess. It would have been all gross. Nice. Happy birthday in advance, Diver. Okay, so... to get into... You know, I had to get the DK64 news out of the way, but... oh god. I wanted to start off by, like, just kind of talking about the project in general. So, it has been almost exactly 6 months since we got started in early December, and... You know, during that time, there's been some weeks that I took off because I got, like, really sick in early February and because I had the surgery last month, so it's not like we've been doing this consistently every week, but most weeks we have been doing it at least 1 episode per week, usually 1 episode on the weekends, but, you know, there were some weeks that I was not able to do it, but overall we've been pretty consistent, and, you know what? Happy birthday, Doog. Happy birthday, everybody in this chat. I presume everyone in this chat was born at some point, so, you know, my birthday's secret, but I was also hatched from an egg at some point, so, I emerged from the core, fully formed. You can invent your own backstory for me. Well, I would say that the number 8 is sacred, because 8/8 was K. Rool's reveal day for Smash Bros. August 8th. And also, it looks like him as well, because it looks like a fat boy. But, so we're 6 months in, 20 episodes. It's been exactly 20 episodes, I believe, once I get, you know, everything else uploaded to YouTube, since I'm a little behind on that. And I'm going to combine the last two DKL2 episodes into one, because the last session I did of it was like an hour long. So so it's 20 episodes, 2 chapters, and I gotta say, like, it's moving along slower than I anticipated, which is good. I didn't know how long this project would take me to get through. I was like, is it going to be like 6 months? Is it going to be a year? I don't know. And I think it's going to be longer than a year, just at the rate we're going now. I didn't anticipate that 6 months in we would only have gotten through 4 games, but that's because all of the, like, looking at magazines and all of the extra stuff actually takes up a lot more time than I thought it was going to do, which is really good, because that's been, like, honestly, my favorite part has been looking at all the extra stuff rather than playing the games themselves. Because I've, so far at least, I've played all these games before, so it's fun to play them again and, like, talk about stuff as we do it, of course, but, like, the real, like, new content to me and the real, like, interesting stuff is, like, looking into these historical documents and all of that. So, yes, it does. If you put it on the side, it is Nipple Watch. 8 is the official number of Nipple Watch. But yeah, like, as we go on, the whole thing of, like, looking at magazines and that sort of thing is going to be a little bit less important, because at some point Nintendo Power ceases to exist, of course, although I think it went into the Wii era. I think we were talking about it before as, like, 2008 or something is how long Nintendo Power went. So, at some point it will cease, also around the time that Kremling ceased to exist for a long time anyway. But, like, we don't really need to, like, look at Nintendo Power articles for some of these games that we're gonna play later, because, like, say we're playing Mario Power Tennis because it has critters and claptraps in it, but, like, the Nintendo Power articles about Mario Power Tennis are not going to talk about, like, that, so it doesn't, like, we don't need to really look into it for that. It's kind of just going to be completely a waste of time, maybe, but we probably will be looking at stuff for at least the remakes of, like, the GBA remakes of the Donkey Kong Country games and stuff, because it'll be interesting to see what Nintendo Power has to say about stuff like that, because, oh no, yeah, Andre, I would rather, I don't know, I would rather, like, jump off the top of Crocodile Isle myself and get bonked several times and then get eaten by sharks than do that, trust me. Which does remind me, it is almost a year anniversary of my, caring about lore article that I wrote, which is very interesting because in some ways that article was, like, the very specific impetus of that article, which is the whole, like, young Pauline thing. That was not really, like, vindicated at all, because Nintendo did not explain that at all, but other things that I essentially wrote the article about were extremely vindicated, which is just the overall, like, caring about the history and the consistency and the backstories and all of that of even something like the Donkey Kong series, which was, like, extremely, extremely vindicated by Bonanza. In fact, more than we could have possibly ever anticipated, so it's kind of weird that the one thing that kind of got everybody talking about that topic, which was Pauline, didn't actually have a satisfying payoff, but then, like, everything else that the article was essentially about and that I was trying to express was, like, satisfactorily resolved, so it's a little bit of a weird situation. I think it would be kind of fun to write a little follow-up to that, but I just haven't really felt like writing much in the past year. I wanted to write an article after Bonanza came out. I wanted to write something that was a follow-up to, like, the K-Rool article I wrote, like, 8 years ago, but I don't know, writing is, like, for me, when I have an idea for something and then I get, like, completely absorbed, and, if I'm gonna write an article or an essay, it's the only thing I can think about for those 3 to 5 days or whatever it takes me to work on it, and I just get completely obsessed. But if the motivation and the inspiration is not there, then it's just, like, really hard to sit down and do it. So someday I would like to write about all this stuff, but writing is, like, a particular thing for me where I only ever, like, write one essay a year or something like that. It's something I enjoy doing, but it's a very, like, rare occasion for me. Yeah, it's you know, I haven't, for various reasons, I haven't been like my most creatively motivated self in the past like year or so, and hoping to like recover that bit by bit as time goes on. But you know, I haven't even been drawing that much, let alone like writing. Writing takes a fucking lot out of me. But yeah, so what I was gonna say about like, you know, when we get into, say, the buyout era, it's going to be interesting to see how the Nintendo Power coverage shifts, because when you get to like the GBA remakes of the DKC games, that's where like kind of sentiment in general is starting to kind of sour on Rare's Nintendo output, because, you know, we've discussed this before and we'll discuss it again when we get there, but there were various like reasons where Nintendo fans especially were really determined to look unkindly on what Rare had made for Nintendo, because they were no longer with Nintendo and people were trying to convince themselves that Rare had never been good, so their loss was no great loss at all. But obviously Nintendo themselves is going to want to continue to sell people on... Even though in Nintendo Power you did get a little things sneaking in that were like, yeah, you know, the Donkey Kong series, we'd be happy to see it go back to its arcade roots, or like whatever. You know, they couldn't like be too outright negative about their past, like, because it's still Nintendo Power and they still have to have that bias. When you look into other gaming magazines at the time, that's where they had no such compunction and they could be as like mean and stuff as they wanted and be like weirdly misogynistic about Dixie Kong as if they were just unironically Cranky Kong IRL. But, you know, we won't be looking at that shit because we are trying to keep to like the officially sanctioned sources, so we'll only be looking at Nintendo Power, not like Game Informer or whoever decided to just be an asshole. But even then, I'm sure there's gonna be a little bit of change in like the tone and stuff, so it's gonna be like interesting to see. No, not the one I'm thinking of, because the one I'm thinking of for like DKC3, where they called like DKC3 like a ugly old bitch or something, that couldn't have possibly been Nintendo Power. Yeah, but I mean, maybe Nintendo Power's review also was mean, but not that mean, not the specific one I'm thinking of. So before I got on this tangent, oh yeah, so looking into the future, you know, there'll be less like supplementary materials to look at as we go on, and so the pace of the chronology overall, especially when we get into all these like weird spin-off games that aren't gonna have a lot of like extra material to look at, it's gonna go faster and faster as we go. But there's like still so much left. We're still like such in the early days of this project. You know, every time I think of like, okay, well, you know, we're past the DKC games at least, but then I think of like how we have to, we're not past the DKC games because we still gotta play DKC 3, but like when we get past them, but then it's like, no, there's a Game Boy Color like remake of DKC that I've never played that we have to play. There's like the GBA remakes of them that we have to play, so even these games we've already played, we're not going to be done with per se. We're going to have to play different versions of them too, so but yeah, there's a couple unresolved threads in this that I still need to figure out how I want to handle them, and one of them, as I've talked about before, is like untranslated Japanese content. Like there's a whole lot of like mangas and stuff for the DKC games that just no one has ever translated online, and I think it would be really cool to maybe kind of spearhead that if I could, get someone who, you know, because I know friends who have done like translation projects, and even like the German comics that we were looking at, the people who were involved with like translating those and typesetting them and putting them into like the PDFs and stuff, I know at least some of those people. So it'd be cool to do that for some of the like mangas and 4-koma things that have never been translated, but I wouldn't mind doing the work of like taking the translation and putting it into the speech bubbles and all that myself. I'm a webcomic artist, I can do that. It's something I would enjoy doing. But I need someone who cares enough about this to actually do it, and like knows Japanese and would be able to translate that for me. And I think there's at least a few people I could reach out to. So that would be a fun thing to do somewhere down the line, and then we could like revisit those. Yeah, the trading card game. There's a surprising amount of like Japanese content out there that's never been translated properly, because there's, I think, because like the DK fandom online has always been relatively small, so our resources for doing this sort of thing maybe just haven't been there, haven't ever really been like put into practice, and like there's not much communication, I would say, between like the Japanese Donkey Kong fandom, which is probably even smaller than the Western one, and the like basically the only way we really communicate that much is through fan art like online, and it's gotten easier in recent years because like auto translation between like English and Japanese has gotten better, but it's still definitely like not perfect. Like machine translation for Japanese is very flawed because Japanese is so context sensitive. Like there's a lot of times where, you know, the language just leaves out pronouns and stuff entirely, and you just, you know, use context to infer what the person is talking about. So that makes it a little difficult for like auto machine translation to parse a lot of the time. So that both makes like translating actual textual things like the manga or whatever difficult, and also translating between, you know, people who are talking to each other is like on social media makes it a little hard. Yeah, the chronology would always be woefully complete because of DKTV. Oh, so it was a European. Interesting. Let me check this out real quick. Nintendo Official Magazine. Also known as NOM. I am not nomming on that one. Ooh. You know, maybe, you know, we could look at this review when we get there if we want to, but I don't really want to. Oh, also, hi. I missed Sage's subscription earlier. Thank you, if you're still here. Appreciate it. Yeah, we can, that one doesn't have to be in the chronology. We can bury that one. So some primary source documents deserve to be lost forever. So yeah, that was, talking about the project in general, how it's been a little more like stretched out and slow-paced than I expected, but that's only a good thing because, you know, I could do this project forever and I'll be sad when we're like kind of officially done with it. Oh yeah, and of course the other loose thread is the cartoon, of course, the anime, because I still don't know how to handle that, and like obviously if we're looking at all of these comics and novelizations and stuff that are just sort of non-game specific like interpretations of Donkey Kong Country that go like wildly off canon in a lot of ways, like that's literally just the exact same thing as the cartoon. There's no reason to treat the cartoon any different than like any of this other like fictionalization stuff that we're looking at. But the problem is just like, how do we handle the cartoon? Like, I don't know if it's allowed to just like watch episodes of something on Twitch and just have a watch party and react to it. I think it is, as long as it's just like already on YouTube legally, and so I think we could do it, but I probably want to leave that for like the very end. We could just like watch, we could just do all of it. We could just have some marathon sessions over a couple weekends and just watch the whole show, like every episode of it. But I think that would be something to do at the very end, and I need to work out and make sure that's like okay to do. Hey, T Major. Okay, thank you. You know what? that's good. Yeah, so maybe tentatively plan on that being how we celebrate the end of the project, is just watching the entire Donkey Kong Country TV show together. And obviously, like, I guess chronology-wise, the time to do that would be kind of coming up around, you know, around the time we're at now, like the DKC 3, DK64 time. But, you know, I think it's more appropriate to save something like that for later. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the cartoon, like, I watched it when I was a kid, and it bothered me a lot because even as like a little 8-year-old or whatever, I was like Hyle Russell of the DK Vine. I was a stickler for canon and stuff. I was like, this isn't, you know, this is different than how it is in the games. Why, like, who the fuck is Bluster Kong? I didn't say who the fuck because I was like 8 years old and I didn't swear back then, but, and I was, you know, like, why does Donkey Kong sing all the time? This is weird, you know. I had my issues with this show even as a little kid, but I think I would like it more now than I did as a kid, like, for sure. Like, knowing what, like, having, you know, mellowing out a bit over the years as I've gotten older. I was actually maybe a little bit more of, like, an uptight kid than I am as an adult. But also just, you know, like, having, knowing the context of, like, when it came out and like, that it actually was, you know, like, very innovative for the time and pretty advanced in its use of, like, mocap and 3D animation and stuff, and just, like, kind of appreciating it more than I could as a kid for, like, what it is, like, having the realistic expectations, like, knowing what we're getting into. But also, like, yeah, one of the things about the show is, you know, for all of its, like, goofiness and shit, it does, like, have some, like, very legitimately good voice acting in it. Thank you again, have fun, see ya. You know, like, Cranky, I think Cranky's voice in the cartoon is, like, the best voice he's ever had, like, better than he had in the Mario movie, better than, you know, not like Cranky Kong has had, like, a ton of voice acting out there, but, like, this spot on, like, I would say, interpretation of Cranky. Obviously, K. Rool's very good. Yeah, so it's not all of the voice acting is great, but there's some really good performances in there. Yeah, the Your Beautiful Hands guy. So that'll be fun when we get to it. And I'm also just kind of, you know, over the years, I've gotten kind of starved. At the time, I was like, you know, when I was watching that cartoon back then, the Donkey Kong series as a video game series seemed so abundant and like it was going to just, like, keep having all this new content forever. That was before Rare got sold off and everything, so, over the years, I'm just kind of like, actually, I spent so much of my life, like, starved of the Donkey Kong content that was anyway, like, you know, actual proximity to what I cared about, and I was starved for, like, Kremling content specifically, that I would be happy to take any of it that I can get these days, even if it, is, like, super goofy as hell, but... Well, yeah, I mean, he had different, singing and talking voice actors, right? Yo, thank you for the 10-stream streak, Teenager, dang. So, that's, you know, the project so far, and going into the future. And there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, which is something that I, you know, don't, if I never get around to this, you know, if things happen in my life and I'm never able to actually do this, you know, don't hold it against me or whatever, but it is I think my plan, my goal, my ideal, with this project, hi Jero, is not only to have all these streams and stuff, which, by the way, I need to, like, make a command here on my Twitch, but, you know, since a lot of these older ones have expired on my Twitch channel, but all of the previous Kronology episodes are up on YouTube at this point, except for, like, the last few Donkey Kong Land 2 ones, but, so the archive is there. Unlike the vast majority of my Twitch streams, these are all getting, you know, permanently saved and archived for people to go back to and revisit and watch if they want to for any reason. But aside from that, I do want to make this project more than just a series of streams, and what I want to do is create, like, a fan site, like a old school style fan site, like the kind I grew up looking at when I was a kid. And I have basically my personal domain name like saved. Like, I own altermentality.com basically. I just haven't done anything with it, and I've always wanted to make like an art portfolio site, but part of that site I would like to be dedicated to just being this kind of fan site thing, and basically turning the Kronology into a little fan project where it'll just be like a website as well, and you can you know, like, maybe I'll just have like one page that's like the big timeline, and from that page you can access all of these resources and stuff, because, you know, I've been saving these like copies of the magazines we've been looking at, so just maybe mirroring them onto my own site for people to, if they want to look at these articles on their own, as well as, you know, any of these other like comics or whatever. I don't know if I would want to cut out like just the, like, do I want to upload the entire Nintendo Power like issues, or maybe just the relevant articles to have them on my website? I don't know, but basically just kind of creating a little fan archive, and you know, links to all the streams as well, but kind of just making like a little historical resource just because I want to. Yeah, what's the like, okay, if it's like DK Vine, it's like Kremling what? Like, what's kremlingswamp.com, kremlingtail.com. I mean, look, the Kongs need their rivals, right? They can't just, you know, they've been allowed to exist without any trouble for too long. We need to create our rival site because the Kremlings are back in business. I love this. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I do need to get it its own domain name instead of just using my own personal website. kremlingnip.com. You know what? That would get censored on... This is a family-friendly website, okay? I don't want it to get censored when you're looking at it on your, like... When Chocolate Milk Drinker's looking at it on his school computer lab, I don't want it to get him in trouble, you know? It's gotta be safe for work. We'll have maybe the secret After Dark section that's completely dedicated to Nipple Watch. I wonder if nipplewatch.com is open, please? If you use caution if you check that for me, but I probably shouldn't make an attempt to own that one, but and yeah, Jero, you can post it. We can have a web ring, you know, the old school, like, click here to go to the next Kremling website. There's just 2 of them, but you know, we can do that. Yeah, you know. So that's my, you know, I have like this very specific memory of a fan site that I used to go to when I was a kid that had like midis of all the Donkey Kong Country songs, and like all of the official art that they had downloaded from Rare's website, and just like little walkthroughs and stuff, and it was completely run by just like one person, I think. And this is not dkvine.com. This is something that existed before DKVine. And I do not remember, like, what the name of the website was or anything. I just remember, like, the background was, like, it was, like, a tiled, like, image of, like, a DK coin, like a hero token, at least for part of it. But, man, that was, like, my first memory of a fan site that I can think of. And that's the kind of thing that I want to, like, emulate, you know? So, you know what? I had like a different topic to go to next. All this talk of like cannonsfattits.com has distracted me. Okay, well that's it. I'm done. I don't have anything else to talk about. Just kidding. By the way, if you have any like community discussion questions that you've been thinking of that you want to bring up, feel free to post them in the chat, and hopefully I'll see them. Nice. I will bookmark this site, you know? Ooh, a fan listing. Oh, something that I think would be fun to do later on in the stream is to look at some of my own, like, really old fan art. I know we did that a little bit, I think, on one of the maybe one of the Bonanza streams or something. But I think it'd be kind of fun to pull up some of my, from my old defunct DeviantArt, my first one that I made when I was like 14 years old. Cannonsfattits.org, you're right. Is there like a .edu? Can I get a .edu site for the Kronology, because it is technically an educational resource? Crocodilenips.edu. Learn about him. Educate yourself. Yes, T-Major, I actually played that for the first time, before Smash Ultimate came out, I did this marathon called Rule-a-thon, where I played all of the games that had K. Rool in it that I had never played in my life, which was 5 of them, and Mario Super Sluggers was one of them, and holy shit, I had a lot of fun with that. Like, I cannot wait to get back to that game. Because we only played through, like, the story mode up to the point where you, like, recruited the Kremlings, and I'd like to play through the entire story mode, because it was pretty fun, and we played some baseball, and it was a blast. Like, that game is awesome. I don't own it. I actually had to borrow it from a friend, and I'd like to own it by the time we get back to playing it, because at this point I now own, like, most games in the Kronology, thanks to Victor. He bought me, like, a ton of them for Christmas, the ones that I didn't already have. So that is one of the ones that I'm missing, though. Technically, I own Power Tennis as well, but like most of my GameCube games, it is with my brother, and every time I ask him to give me one of my GameCube games back, or our GameCube games, so like he has every much as right to keep them as I do, like, because, you know, I got to keep the Super Nintendo and the N64 when we got older, and he got the GameCube and the PS2 and stuff like that. But, you know, every time there's a GameCube game that I do really want, and I'm like, hey, can I have this one? He, like, is like, oh yeah, I'll give it to you next time I see you, and then I remind him, and then, like, he always forgets, so I don't think I'm gonna get that back anytime soon. He did let me keep, like, Paper Mario TTYD, because he never cared for that game much anyway, so, you know, I got to keep that one. Yeah, my bot is still asleep, after we got back from our trip. It hasn't been turned back on yet. KremlingMilk.com. Is it pasteurized? So, yeah, the 3DS one is gonna be really interesting because I don't know how I'm gonna handle that yet, and it might be something as silly as, like, putting my webcam to where you can, like, see my hands, you know, hand stream, hands playing, like, some Smash Run. I don't need to play that for very long, I don't think, but we do need to include it somehow. Because I don't have a good way, or maybe figuring out how to emulate it or something. Because I own the game, you know, don't come after me, Nintendo Ninjas, I own the game, but I need to find some way to stream it, and I don't really know how to do that. Yeah, you get to see and hear the sounds of the DS buttons clicking and everything. Yeah, at this point, the only... So let's talk about games going forward that I am scared of, or that I'm looking forward to especially. So we have a game coming up pretty soon that I'm afraid of, which is Diddy Kong Racing, because this tends to surprise people, you know, given my interests, but I did not grow up with Diddy Kong Racing. I did not play it as a kid, like, at all. For whatever reason, despite my interest in Donkey Kong and later my interest in Banjo-Kazooie, I never rented it. I just don't like racing games that much. I never have. So I think, like, as a kid, I had, like, Mario Kart, and that was, like, the only one I needed. So I had Mario Kart, you know, for the Super Nintendo, for the N64, and I just, like, never really... Like, I rented what... I always forget the name of it, but it's like the SNES game where, like, the box art is the cute claymation cars with the, like, googly eyes and stuff. But it doesn't really look like that. The game itself doesn't really look like that. It's like Stunt Race something? But I just was never really into racing games, and I quickly learned, I think, that, like, renting them, I just didn't enjoy them that much, so I would rather have, like, played other games back in the day, platformers and stuff like that, so... I just never rented Diddy Kong Racing because despite my interest in the material, I rather would have played other games, I guess. So Stunt Race FX, that's it. So, Dustin, I I don't want to include like fan projects per se, with the exception probably of Return to Crocodile, just because it's that good and it was very important, I think, for like the fandom and stuff. But I think that would be a fun like April Fool's stream maybe. In fact, I didn't know there was a sequel until Andre told me, because Andre thought that's what I was gonna do for this past April Fool's Day, but so maybe next year, April Rules Day. I think maybe looking into like fan stuff would be a fun thing to do on the side, but it wouldn't get included officially in the project because there's no way it could be like exhaustive about that. So Diddy Kong Racing, not only did I not grow up with it, but you know, when I actually did obtain the game, because my good friend Larry, who was on my 10th anniversary stream, the Banjo-Kazooie one, he sent it to me at some point, like 12, 15 years ago. I don't know. It was a long time ago. So I did play it, and then I played it again at some point, but I've never actually beaten it. So this will be the first time I ever actually beat Wizpig when I do it, and I'm not going to be playing as Crunch the whole time, although I will play as him for like as much as I can until I can't stand it anymore. But I didn't, maybe, you know, maybe these aren't the best characters to main because obviously I was bad at the game and I struggled enough, but I did kind of like main Pipsy and Tip Tup when I was playing it, so maybe I'll try something else this time, but we'll see. I expect that to be a pretty long series just because of how bad I am at the game and how long it's gonna take me to get through it. Yeah, I mean, I figured you weren't super serious, Dustin, but it would be a at least silly thing to do at some point, just for fun. Yeah, I'll have to play Diddy Kong Racing DS too. But other than that, I don't really know if there's any games that I'm like actually afraid of or afraid that I won't be able to beat. Kind of Jungle Climber, because that game is hard and I have never actually beaten it without using save states, and I'd like to try to beat it without using save states this time. And I didn't have to do that too much, but there were like a couple levels and the final boss itself that I could not get through without cheating a little bit, especially because I was on a time limit and I didn't want to like spend forever on it. But when I have infinite time, I think I'll be able to do it. But that game is actually fucking hard as balls. It is like maybe the most difficult the most difficult game with K. Rool in it that I have played. I'll put it that way, I guess. Have you played King of Swing, Dustin? Because, I think King of Swing is a lot easier, but also I just like it more anyway. I like the art style of it better. This is true, I played it on the Wii U Virtual Console, and, that's where I will play it again. I'm gonna have to plug my Wii U in, but, you know, that's where I own it officially, along with Jungle Climber, so it's not cheating if it's the tool that they give me, but... Because, you know, Barrel Blast is going to be interesting. I don't really know how much I want to handle. Like, am I going to force myself to, like, beat everything in Barrel Blast? Because that game is a struggle. Or am I just going to play it enough until I, like, get the gist of it? I don't really know. I guess we'll have to feel it out when we get there. But I do feel like we have to spend a significant time with Barrel Blast. Like, we have to put, several sessions into it at least, because it is one of the more, like, Kremling core games out there. So even if I'm not having a great time with it, we can't just, like, bury it and rush past it, right? King of Swing and Jungle Climber get, like, so little love, and I think that they deserve more, you know? Like, I wouldn't say they're, like, the greatest games ever, but they're unique, and you know what? They're fun, and they're interesting, and I feel like a lot of people, even people who are DK fans, just kind of, like, brush past them as if they don't exist, and it's kind of sad. I want to, when we get to the, you know, buyout era of the chronology, I want to give, like, so much love to games like that, to the pay-on games that kept the Kremlings alive even if no one was actually paying attention, and even if people like to not acknowledge their existence. So I want to finally, you know, kind of put them in their appropriate place and give them their due, you know? Yeah, like, I don't know. It's kind of interesting if they want to make a Donkey Kong spin-off that's not, you know, not just talking about like a, you know, you have a 3D game and a 2D game or whatever, but like an actual more like gameplay, you know, and I guess there's always Mario versus Donkey Kong, but if we wanted to talk about like an actual like Donkey Kong centric spin-off, it's I wonder what they would go for at this point in time. Like, would they bring back having like a music rhythm game, or would they go for something else? I don't know. I mean, you could always say a racing game. A lot of people would love to see another racing game, but Nintendo's had so many racing games recently, I don't know if they would want to go for another one. I mean, they do tend to be pretty popular and successful, so maybe they could, you know. We have a break coming up soonish. I have to go to the bathroom, so I'm wondering if I just want to take a break a little bit early. Or I could talk for like 5 more minutes or so and then I'll do it, but, I wanted to talk about like some maybe like bigger picture, things that this project so far has taught me. You know, stuff that you could apply to like more than just the very specific like fandom that we're looking at here. You know, things that maybe it's... I always say that, you know, even though I didn't end up speedrunning long term and it was only something I did for a few years, it feels like a long time, and it's something that I like learned a lot from doing. I learned a lot about just like... I feel like speedrunning taught me a lot about myself and about just like games in general, where I really learned that there's no such thing as like difficulty that can't be surpassed. It's just really all about like knowing what to expect, and like you can always get better at things even if they seem like insurmountable at first. And really nothing forced me to confront that as much as speedrunning did. And I think, you know, my willingness to try games that are described as difficult, nothing has really given me the confidence to do that, so much as like speedrunning did, because seeing myself like tangibly improve over time and my times get better and stuff was like the direct evidence that I needed that I could improve at difficult things like that. And you know, another thing is that like whenever I think like, oh, people say this game is hard, am I gonna be able to handle it? I think about how like a lot of people say that the Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country games are hard, and you know, I still see people play them for the first time these days and struggle a lot and be like, oh, I had to use save states, you know, I didn't want to have to deal with the fact that I can only save once I get to a certain place in the world or whatever, so, and then I think about how I can beat those games, like, basically with my eyes closed at this point, and it's, you know, difficulty is all about, like, acclimation, like, you can learn and you can get better and you can get used to something and it won't feel hard anymore, but... yeah, like, what's the deal with the... oh, I've seen this fan art before. I've seen that before. Well, this is true. But that's because, like, Dark Souls is, like, the extreme version of it where, you know, people say games are hard, but then, like, Dark Souls is like, oh, this is the definition of hard. Like, you think you've played hard games before, but literally, like, Dark Souls is the gamer, like, stand-in for a difficult video game. But then you play it, it's, like, not actually that bad. Like, I don't know, it's more of its, like, reputation getting blown so absurdly, like, out of proportion, I think, is what scared me off there. But I don't know, I think that's just because it's become a cliche at that point. Look, it's partially that, and it's partially just, like, I always want to get around to stuff, but I always have a million other things to do, so I get around to things in my own time, you know? I still need to get back to Dark Souls 2, though, which I did, stop playing, because I just got distracted by other stuff. but I was maybe about halfway or more through that game. And I was playing it with like a magic build, so it felt very different than my like style for the first game. Yeah, but when I get back, we'll talk about like some of those big picture things that I want to talk about. But for now, I have been drinking this little soda and I gotta go to the bathroom, so I'll be back in a few minutes. Yeah, he has problems committing to finishing his own webcomic, that's for sure. Yeah, so that's the main reason why I don't want to like stream the Dark Souls games and stuff. It's like enough to have Victor there watching me. That's all the like engagement and feedback I need, because you know, I know that like the majority of the community of like fans of those games are actually really cool people, but I don't think I've ever like seen anyone streaming a Souls game or a Souls-like game without at least like one really annoying chatter showing up and trying to like backseat people and just kind of being generally like a know-it-all. So yeah. so like I just don't want to deal with it. So unfortunately, even though I know there are people in my community who would really like to see me play a game like that, I just would rather just do it on my own time, you know? Here's some barking, but I think it's not Shadow. I think it's like a dog outside. I will have to stop and take Shadow out at some point, though. Okay, so talking about back to talking about the chronology. Something I did want to say that I kind of wanted to say at the beginning of the stream, but then I decided to wait a little bit until more people got here. But I just wanted to say in general that this project has been like the bright spot of my year, in a year that has been very, very difficult on both the like personal and like wider societal level, where everything just increasingly seems to get like shittier and shittier on the internet and outside of the internet and everything. As some of you may know, earlier in the year I had a health thing which was very like traumatizing, and thank you for the Gangplank Galleon, K-Rool. I appreciate the jaunty music while I talk about this. I had something happen to me that was very, like, distressing, and, there's other things that have happened, since, in the last, you know, half a year or so. It's basically been a very, very, like, difficult time in my life. As great as, like, 2025 was, which was genuinely, like, 2025 was one of the best years of my life, not just because of, like, silly fandom stuff, but just in general, it was a great year. You know, I got to go on some trips where I hung out with people, you know, it was just, like, good stuff happening. I got to meet like Grant Kirkhope, Dave Wise, and Kev Bayless in person. It's just like, damn, what a great year. And then 2026 immediately just took a nosedive, and it fucking sucks. But these streams have been like really the thing, one of the things that keeps me going and keeps me hanging in there. So like this project was extremely well timed, and I have been enjoying it a lot. It's one of the things that I look forward to like on a weekly basis, and I'm just really glad that I have regulars that show up for it and all of the fun, silly conversations we've had. I'm just really, really super grateful that it's turned out even better than I could have hoped for. Like, I've just had so much of a blast doing this silly nonsense, so. You know, there's, I think to some extent going forward, as much as I do like, you know, talking about personal stuff when it's appropriate to do so, I want there to be some kind of separation a little bit between like my personal life and my, you know, stream and my public like internet facing life, I guess you could say. But so I'll just leave it at I'll just leave it at this. It's been a really rough year for me personally. Me and Victor mutually have both had really, really like difficult stuff in our lives to deal with. And you know, we're there for each other, but also like, you know, having these outlets has been really beneficial. So I wanted to talk about, like, how cool it's been to have sort of this, like, self-directed educational project, I guess, which, like, doing this has like, reminded me that if there's something you want to learn, if there's something you want to, like, know about, you know, you can always, like, teach yourself to some extent. Like, when you're younger and you're in school, college, whatever, obviously you get the benefit of being able to learn from a professor, you get the benefit of being able to learn from someone who really knows their stuff most of the time, like, actually teaching you things. I had some professors in college, and I went to a fairly prestigious university, but they were, like, I feel like they were, like, asleep most of the time. Like, I don't know, like, even in like a good college, sometimes you get a professor who's a little bit crazy, you know, the professor stereotype of being not all there. So sometimes you wonder how much you're, like, really learning from them sometimes. But, you know, unfortunately, as you get older, you probably don't have access to that type of thing, to actually, like, learning things from an expert in their field or whatever, and you kind of have to just, like, teach yourself. But that is possible, and I think that's kind of ideally the most important thing you can learn from going to college, you can learn from, like, school in general, which is that as you get older, you may not be able to, like, learn from other people directly, but you learn the tools to be able to teach yourself, hopefully, from, like, you know, going to the library or just looking at resources or whatever. Oh, thank you, Diver. Yeah, I genuinely, that is, like, my absolute favorite part over the years of being a streamer or having any sort of small community whatsoever, like my, you know, my Discord, whatever. It's not, like, a big community, but I have seen people talk to each other and become friends that I know each other because of me first, and that's, like, whenever that happens is, like, my favorite thing in the world. So that's something I'm super grateful for. Actually, the next page of my webcomic that I'm working on, whenever I get around to finishing it, is kind of a similar sentiment, because I put all of my psychological stuff into my webcomic. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, teaching yourself. It is difficult in this day and age because there is so much information out there at our fingertips, but now more than ever, you know, this has been a problem on the internet forever, that people can just post whatever and it can be misinformation, but, like, the problem within, like, recent years is that even these sources that you're supposed to be able to trust are becoming increasingly, like, just based on falsehoods and stuff, because people just rely on, like, AI and stuff to gather their information for them, and it's often just a misinterpretation or just an outright fabrication. So the ability to do your own research and look at, like, actual primary source documents or books or things like that that were published, you know, long before any of this nonsense was even a problem. If you want to actually learn something and learn the truth about something, that becomes increasingly more important if you want to teach yourself about anything. So, you know, going back to these actual original Nintendo powers and stuff, this is all within, like, a silly, like, fandom context, but it's kind of a microcosm if you want to learn about, like, history or learn about anything, the kind of skills that you need to apply. So yeah, I said this recently, but what I think the secret sauce of, like, the DK fan community is, partly it's just that, like I said earlier, it's always been kind of small. Like, the Donkey Kong games are quite popular when it comes to, like, the sales numbers and stuff, you know, ever since the 90s. Like, the DKC games sold well, DK64 sold well, Bonanza is selling, you know, it's got a good, like, install rate. What do you call it? Like, you know, the total number of people who have a Switch 2 who bought Bonanza is pretty good. But for all its popularity, like, outside of the internet, I think the, like, popularity of the Donkey Kong fandom on the internet has always been fairly small. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it tends to be popular with, like, people who aren't super terminally online, I guess, and I think for the people who are on the internet, there's, like, sort of this, like, moderation, you know, like, I don't know, But I think the real secret sauce about it is that because the Donkey Kong series is like so intimately connected to the Mario series, and I think all of the people who care about DK first and foremost before, like, you know, placing it as more importance or at least equal importance to the to the Mario franchise, that's what I would consider like the true DK fandom. But then there's a bunch of people who just consider it like an offshoot of the Mario franchise, like part of the greater, larger Mario franchise. And I think that all of the like truly toxic discourse addict people just end up getting filtered into like the Mario fandom, you might say, and end up just like complaining about like the Mario series because they just consider DK to be part of the Mario series. So like you don't really see all of the like toxic fandom negativity unless you're looking at like Mario specific conversations, because they go to the Mario fandom because people like that are addicted to content and addicted to like constant new stuff. And obviously there's always a lot more like Mario content coming out, you know. Now we got the movies, there's new games all the time, and even with all that, people will say Nintendo has forgotten about Mario, but you know. And I also think that, you know, the patience that the Donkey Kong fandom has had to show over like the last decade or so, especially filtered out some of the more annoying people, because I don't know if that's necessarily like bound to happen, because there's a lot of like annoying Banjo-Kazooie fans, to be frank, who are like constantly whining about it and being like rude about it and being rude to Rare about it and stuff like that. So just because a game series hasn't had an entry in a long time doesn't necessarily mean that the annoying people are just going to drop off over time. Some of them stay and some of them just get more annoying, but for whatever reason, I think in the Donkey Kong fandom's case, maybe that just sort of like filtered out, because again, maybe they just became like Mario fans or whatever. It filtered out some of the people who were going to be annoying about it. So, yeah, one thing I wanted to say was this project has, like, kind of re-inspired me to, you know, and I think after we're done with this, like, it would be fun to maybe look into doing some research projects like this on my own time, which I don't necessarily know if this is something that, like, streaming would be involved in, but other subjects that interest me that aren't related to video games, you know, you can just like go out there and learn things. You don't have to stop learning things after you graduate college or whatever degree of schooling that you got. I think that's something that a lot of adults, even like really curious and like educated and smart adults, unfortunately, as we get older, and we have to deal with like real life stuff and taking care of yourself and jobs and making yourself dinner and doing errands and all that shit. You know, even if you were the type who liked to learn things, you kind of like over time, because there's no one there to like teach it to you, you kind of forget that you can just keep learning stuff about your interests your entire life long. So even though this is just, you know, I love it dearly, but this topic is, you know, just all about a fantasy world and a fantasy species and stuff, but it's reminded me that, you know, after I'm done with this, or even while I'm still doing it, if I want to, I can go out there and like check out books and you know, keep learning about whatever, because the learning never has to end as you know, go through your life. But I think another thing that's important that I've like learned, at least about myself and the way my brain works, is I don't have a very good long-term memory, which is something that I already did know about myself. Like I, you know, figured that out years and years ago, but there's no shame in like making sort of an archive of what you're learning, or you know, you don't have to just like read a nonfiction book and expect that it all just like sticks in your head and, oh yeah, I know that now, I learned it. You know, take notes, discuss it, you know, make some kind of website about it, like whatever it takes to document what you learned and to like put it into a resource that you can go back to or that other people can go back to or whatever. There's like absolutely no shame in that at all. So what we're doing here, like making an archive of all the streams, and I've been like saving all the concept art and all of the magazines that we've been looking at and stuff, that's like been really beneficial to me to help me like retain the stuff that I'm looking at and the stuff we're learning. Yeah, there's like this one. No, I don't want to. I don't want to like talk about other people, but I was gonna say there's like this one like banjo account that sort of just like epitomizes the worst thing with the fandom. But I mean, if you know who I'm talking about, you probably know. But yeah, for all of the like, you know, there's a big problem, I'd say, like on the internet of people wanting to move on to the next thing all the time, and you know, you're barely done talking about like one game that just came out before like the entire internet moves on to talking about the next game or whatever. But there's a ton of people out there who, especially, you know, as games and gaming consoles get more and more expensive as time goes on due to the whole, you know, situation with tech right now. There's more and more people out there who are discovering old games for the first time and who have an interest in discovering retro games for the first time. You just maybe don't hear about it as much because obviously like the main discourse is always going to center around whatever the newest thing is. And that's just, you know, how it works. Like when there's like a critical mass of people talking about one thing, that's the thing that the algorithm is going to show you on YouTube or whatever. And you're less likely to just randomly get like, oh, I just played this game for the first time. But there's tons of people out there who are much younger than me that are playing games that were released before they were even born, like all the time. And that's really cool. For me, you know, I was a SNES. I was born alongside the SNES, basically. And there's not like a ton of games I've gone back and played that were released before my time, because there's just really not that many. You know, it was relatively early in gaming history, but I've played a lot of NES games, and, you know, there's some of them that I really, really love. Castlevania, the first Castlevania, as you may know, is one of my favorite games ever. You know, the NES Zelda games are both really good in their way. Recently I've been playing like the NES Final Fantasy games, which is technically the pixel remaster, so it's not technically the actual NES games, but in structure and everything, they're, you know, not reworked that heavily. So yeah, I think if there's like one thing that I want to take away from this project long term when it comes to my own life, it's that, you know, you if you have an interest, whether it's an extremely, extremely niche thing like a specific fictional species of crocodile people, or if it's something a little more broad, like a certain historical period, or like person in history or whatever, like, you should not let that go to waste. Like, if you have an interest in something, like, get out there and learn about it. Like, the information is out there for you at your local library or on the internet or whatever. Like, don't let that wither on the vine. If you care about something, if you want to learn about it, you should go learn about it. Man, this music is really inspiring, talking about this specific thing. Kid Chameleon is like an infamous game in one of the communities I'm in, because I just know it's like incredibly hard, but one of the streamers that I follow, I think that was like the first game he ever streamed or something like that. He used to speedrun it or something a long, long time ago. Yeah. I felt like I had another topic I wanted to get to, but, I'll ask the audience, something, which is, why are you here? Like, why are you here watching me do this project? Was it because you knew me before the project started, or do you like Donkey Kong Country enough to be here? Like, I don't know, what interests you? Do you just enjoy the streams because they're funny and because we talk about nips? Like, I don't know, I'd be interested in a... Well, yes, I do too, Jero. All of the above? That's good. I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm going to pull up some of my old fan art like I was talking about doing because I think that'll be fun to look at. Give me just a moment here, though. I don't want to actually look at my old DeviantArt page. We're gonna save some of these instead. Don't I have like a Donkey Kong? No, I don't. I just have like a rare folder, I guess. I love the Donkey Kong Land theme. It's so jaunty. I think I showed some of these already, but I haven't made any DK64 music in a while, and I would like to get back into it soon, but I've just had so much else occupying my mind. Alright, I bet in my current account I have some stuff as well that's still really old. Oh yeah, alright. There's some stuff here. Let me read the chat a little bit though. Oh, thank you, Caro. Cool, thank you everybody. Okay, let me save a few more of these pictures and then we can look at them. It's funny, okay, so like looking at the fan art I have on my DeviantArt of like my Donkey Kong folder, there's like a huge like jump in quality in my art style if you just like look, because the reason being mainly that there were like quite a few years in there where I just didn't really draw anything like Donkey Kong related at all, because it's always been like a subject that I drew a lot of fan art of since I was a little kid. But there were some years where I want to say like maybe around like 2013 to maybe like maybe all the way to like 2018, we'll say, where I just basically didn't draw very much at all, because that's where I started to get just like kind of depressed about the prospect of seeing like the characters that I really cared about returning ever again. So like there was definitely a point where you know, like I just didn't even like draw K. Rool that much or anything, because I just didn't expect to see him ever again, and like it made me like kind of depressed to focus on that or anything. So there was still a few things in there, but there was definitely like maybe 5 years or so that was just like a really dry period for my like, you know, one of the constant fan art subjects that I've done throughout my entire life. But there was definitely a period where like it made me more sad than happy to even like think about it or focus on it in art. So then of course you hit 2018 with the Smash reveal, and it just like all comes pouring back out at once. No, you know what? I have never drawn lewd stuff in my entire life. I just not interested in that kind of thing. Alright, let's take a look though. The art you've been looking at here is something I drew last year. Of course, you can probably guess that. Okay, so here's the classic, and we already looked at this one on stream at one point in the past before. But this is the 14 image. This image I drew when I was 14 years old. I'm covering up Clapper there. Unacceptable. Okay, I have to cover up my own face instead. No, I never drew Club as Club, so to speak. This, that I drew for the 10th birthday of, you know, what I said at the time was one of my favorite games, because I needed to get a little older, I guess, to really look back on my life and solidify being able to say that with complete certainty, but, man, because, like, around this time in my life, I was playing so many bangers for the first time, like the Ace Attorney games, the Chrono Trigger, stuff like that. It's like, man, you know, there's so many good games I was playing. I understand not wanting to say, like, definitively that I had a favorite game, but, you know, once I got a bit older, looked back over my life, I'm like, yeah, DKC2 is my favorite game. I maybe draw suggestive stuff sometimes in nipples, but nipples are not lewd. They're just a beautiful part of the human or Kremling body. They're just, you know, non-sexual artistic nudity. But yeah, I drew this when I was 14, and I've gotten a little better over the years, but I think it's funny because I didn't fit, like, absolutely every character in here or anything, but I remember this took me, like, an extremely long time as it was, so I didn't have time for absolutely everyone. And I drew this with a mouse, because it was either with a mouse or I had, like, just gotten my first tablet and I really didn't, know how to use it yet, but, like, I just remember it, drew this in the GIMP, I believe. I don't think I drew it with the mouse. No, I think what I did was I sketched it and then I scanned it in, and then I did draw it with the mouse on top of that, but, at any rate, whatever I was doing, I was not... Cause back when I got my very first tablet, it took me an extremely long time to, like, get used to actually using it. So even just, like, getting a computer tablet didn't make, like, digital art, like, super easy for me. It was still, like, a real big struggle. And this is the tablet that I have now. That I've had this one for, like... It's got a little paint on it. I was like painting something on top of this not long ago, foolishly, and I had like some paper towels and stuff on top of it, but it still like got through a little bit. But it's okay, it didn't affect it. But I've had this tablet since like 2013 or something, like a really, really long time. Still works like a charm. Yeah, let me see if I can like open this one again and see if I can... if the description says anything about it. Okay, I don't think it says if I drew it with a mouse or my new tablet or what. I'd have to do some research to find if I had talked about it in any previous art, but it says countless hours went into this. Okay. So that's that one. And then here's another one that was from around the same time. Either you can tell by the art style looking almost exactly the same, but it is either slightly after it or slightly before it. But I remember this one was a request. Someone wanted... I was like, give me art ideas, and then someone specifically requested, like, DK and Diddy fighting some Kremlings on, like, the deck of a ship or something. But, So it's interesting because you got like DKC2 Kremlings here, but it's just DK and Diddy instead of like Dixie, because that was like the specific request someone had made. As you can tell, I have always been obsessed with like Screech and having Screech be with Captain K. Rool, because he was also in the previous picture, right behind him there. And yeah, Diddy doing some kind of like very silly like karate move. I don't know. It's, oh yeah. This is so realistic. It looks, you know, it's more impressive than any 3D technology that was developed at the time. It's I especially love the huge amount of detail in the ship deck, as you can see. Oh, you can just like see the individual boards and everything. Wow. But no, I was it's yeah, like interesting because, you know, like I bring in like DK's coconut gun and stuff because, you know, lots of blendings of the different game eras at this picture. I think this is before Brawl came out. Because this would have been like 2005? 2005 or 2006. It's just a coincidence. Let's see. I can find the exact date of this one. Yeah, so this was a little before the anniversary picture that I just showed, but it was August 15th, 2005. So there you go. Yeah, so Sakurai actually saw this picture and he was like, that's, you know, I found it. This is the perfect Diddy pose. Here's one that's where did it go? I just saved this image and it did not show up on my desktop. There it is. Not a Kremling, but got our little cat o' nine tails here. Don't ask who Fluffy is, okay? Don't ask, okay? Don't ask. Don't ask. Kitty. This one was definitely drawn and then scanned in and then colored on the computer. Alright, we're gonna jump ahead all the way, almost 10 years later. I think this was drawn in 2013, 2012, 2013, something like that. I should be keeping my galleries open so I can see, I can tell you what years I made these, but give me just a second. Yeah, I'm gonna leave this open so I can tell you when I made all these, but yeah, this is actually, we're gonna jump all the way to 2013 here, which is, you know, like 8 years in the future from these drawings we've been looking at, and we get this one. So like I said, in 2013 I was still drawing stuff, but at some point, like shortly after that, I kind of had this like downturn where I didn't do a lot of Donkey Kong fan art for a while. But I don't know, just there you go. This is actually for, this was a this is for like a YouTube thumbnail for someone a long time ago. And I do not even know if that video still exists or anything. Yeah, and Clump's got his like little #1 foam finger over here too. Alright, what next? Let me find another picture to look at. The thing is, I have to find like a balance between like art that I want to show from when I was younger, but also a lot of it, like it's like too bad. It's like too cringy. It's like I don't want to look at it anymore. It's like, you know, you gotta find that balance between like, oh, this is cute. She drew that when she was just a little teenager, versus like, okay, that's actually it looks like shit. There's some art that's old that I just don't want to look at anymore at all. Okay, I got a couple things though. I do have that, but it's much more recent. I didn't draw anything like that when I was a kid. I actually didn't ship them until later on in my life, you know? Okay, here's a Mad Jack that is very, like, edgy. It's like from a time in my life where everything I drew was like extremely like over textured and stuff. You know, I still like using a lot of texture in my art, but I had to like find a balance at some point. And like use it judiciously, I would say. And then I've got a This is back in time a little bit, actually. This is 2010. This was when I was I remember drawing this like at college when I was a let's see, freshman or sophomore. Let me see, this was May 2010, so like the end of my freshman year of college. And then a couple more that I did for a really old like collab back in the day around the same time. And I think these are interesting because these are pretty like distinct as far as art style goes. I was like doing a lot of experimentation around this point. But these were also like drawn on paper and then scanned in and then colored. But yeah, got a crow here. And this guy with his tattoos. He's got like bramble tattoos on his arm. Yeah, these are a little different as far as my art style goes, but it was like really little maybe a little bit more like realistic. I was really proud of them at the time. You can see this one wasn't exactly like super well, you know, because I had to scan it in and then I had to like edit out all the like white parts of the paper, so it wasn't super well done, unfortunately, with the transparency, but honestly, this clinger does look super sick. I could get a like tattoo of him. Tattooception. I actually think he does have teeth there. I decided to give him bird teeth for some reason. It's just also a little hard to tell because of all the like white artifacts around that just weren't cropped out really well. Yeah, and of course I have like plenty more like old art, but this is all the stuff that I think is like really worth looking at, because again, some of it's just like super baby mode. I mean, I have some stuff, I did show this before, like at some point on my stream when we were playing Bonanza or something, but I do have like some more older stuff that's just, I still have it saved on my desktop, but just, you know, like really basic stuff from like, I want to say like 2006-ish. But then, my art has evolved a little bit over the years. But then there's, you know, there's like a big jump forward, kind of when we get to like 2018, and I started drawing a lot of Donkey Kong fan art again. Oh, here's another one from back in the day. Once again, Screech. I have always loved Screech. You can never accuse me of being a fake Screech fan. I paid Steve Mails a lot of money to draw Screech for me. Yeah, let me see when this was drawn. I don't have that pulled up right now because I had this saved on my computer already. Oh, this was actually, believe it or not, no, yeah, this was 2007, so it was a couple years later. But, yeah, the line art is a lot better for sure. I had learned how to use the tablet by that time, and it was no longer, like, so, like, because that was, like the stuff we were looking at earlier, it was drawn very, like, incrementally instead of, like, you know, big sweeping lines. It was, like, very, like, gradually making the lines, either with my mouse or with the tablet that I was just, like, learning how to use. Yeah, I mean, the posing is more or less just based on, like, sprites. I was just kind of working off the sprites here, but, obviously drawing them myself. So, one of those times where I was, like, taking inspiration from art and sort of recreating it in my own image. The, like, very first fan art I ever made as a, you know, very young child, like 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, was I would pause the game that I was playing. So, like, I did this with Donkey Kong Country 3, I remember specifically, like, a lot. But I would pause the SNES game that I had on my screen, and I would just, like, draw the landscape that I saw. Because I remember doing that with, like, all the DKC3 landscapes. I would, you know, draw the screen, just recreate the screenshot, basically. And that taught my little self a lot about, like, coloring and whatnot. Here's a little guy from around the same time. Caution. Very little cutie. He's a scrungly for sure. You know what's interesting is that if you look a lot of this earlier art, I did not draw, like, Kremlings with claws on their hands, because they originally didn't have claws on their hands, and even though they started to gain that from, like, DK64 and onwards, I just kind of kept with the, like, Super Nintendo, like, depictions of them, and I didn't give them claws on their hands, and, like, the very first times I ever did so was, like, after, Smash Ultimate was after the K-Rool reveal for that. But it is weird when I look at them and seeing just like the clawless fingers, because that's like not the way I would draw them these days. And then, let's see. Here's another one. This is actually from, believe it or not, this is from July 2018, when I just kind of felt like drawing them, and I had no idea what was coming in less than a month. And my description for this is, well, I'll post the picture up first, but so we're taking a big jump into the future now, but this is probably the last time I ever drew. Hey, come back, come back, come back. There you go. Last time I ever drew them without claws on their hands, but yeah, July 2018, and I said, have some Krem boys because I don't do enough art for my beloved DKC2. Did you know it's my favorite game and also the first time learning to speedrun? And I decided to give K-Rool nipples as well because he wants kind of looks like he's like grabbing his own tit a little bit, but that wasn't the intention. But he wanted to be part of the nipple party, so I thought, I don't know. I don't know why I just gave him to him. I just felt like it. Okay, I just wanted to. I mean, because that is like belly armor too. It's so he put fake nipples onto them. Cause he, yeah. Thank you for the bits. I mean, yeah, but he didn't have hand claws for like the first, you know, all the way. DK64 is the first time he got them, and even then, I don't think he has them in like the renders, but just like in game. But yeah, I'm so used to him having them now, even though it's been like the minority of my life that he's had them. But it does look wrong for him to not. Yeah, and then, you know, I don't have to look through like every drawing that I've made in my life, but just to jump all the way forward to like the modern days. My art style has come a little, you know, it's come a little ways from the early stuff we were looking at. But yeah, I imagine I will be drawing these characters for the rest of my life. And I look forward to continuing to improve. And of course, this one, which you may have seen around. But yeah, just leave this one up because I like it. Ha 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 ha. So that was a fun little trip down memory lane. I don't draw as much anymore, just like in general overall as I used to, because everything else I do in my life just takes so much energy out of me. But you know, when I get the chance, I still like doing it from time to time. Hey Malik, how's it going? We were just doing a little look through old art of mine. It was, you know, it was fun. Now, I really have a lot of old, like, Banjo-Kazooie art as well, but maybe at some point in the future we'll have an excuse to look through those. Oh, did my music stop? I guess it's gone. It's played every song in the playlist now or something. Alright. So, I didn't, like, have any, like, real plans for how long I wanted this stream to last or, like, all the stuff I necessarily wanted to talk about, but, you know, I just wanted to have a little, like, chat session where we could just kind of go through some of the things I've learned so far, both like in terms of, actually I do have a lot more that I want to talk about because I just forgot like an entirely different subject that I had wanted to bring up. So last night when I was playing Pokemon Stadium, so we played Pokemon Stadium for a few hours and then we swapped over to Pokemon Stadium 2 because I was frustrated. And I talked about like what a big jump it was, back at the time to go from like Gen 1 to Gen 2 because, if you weren't there, then you might look back on it and be like, I've heard like people say, I've heard like little young baby Pokemon fans say that like, oh, Gen 2 isn't that anything all that great because they didn't add that many new Pokemon, or like, it in gameplay style, it's not too different from, they're both Game Boy games, so people don't really like see the differences between them. Looking back, they just seem like they're pretty similar, but there was so much of a generational jump in gameplay between Gen 1 and Gen 2. All the stuff they added, Pokemon genders, breeding, held items, new types, new moves, the special getting actually split out into special attack and special defense, all this stuff. And you can sort of recreate that feeling a bit, even if you weren't there, even if you weren't even alive for it. If for some reason you choose to really immerse yourself and play like a bunch of Pokemon Stadium 1 or play a bunch of like the actual Gen 1 Pokemon games, I'm not talking about like Fire Red, I'm talking about actual Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue or whatever. You play that for a long time. And then, the day and night cycle as well. And Pokemon like Friendship, all kinds of stuff. There's so much that it added. So if you immerse yourself really, really deeply in Gen 1 mechanics, and then you jump to like Gen 2 or whatever, then you get blasted by like all of these new possibilities and all this new stuff they added, and it's like, wow, you don't know what it was like if you didn't like live through it, but you can sort of recreate the feeling for yourself by immersing yourself in it that much. And I've been doing the same thing with this project for Donkey Kong Country in a way that like I didn't really get to experience as a kid. In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. So I've talked about before how Donkey Kong Country was the first Donkey Kong game I played, but then I did not play Donkey Kong Country 2 next. I played them out of order, I owned them out of order, I played Donkey Kong Country first, but then I played Donkey Kong Country 3, and then I went back and played DKC 2, and I owned DKC 3 first, and then I owned DKC 2, and then I didn't own actually Donkey Kong Country until later, despite that being the first one I had actually played. So I didn't get this like experience as a kid of like, people who were slightly older than me and maybe had a little bit more like agency over the games they were playing. My necklace fell into my shirt at some point. I didn't get to be like, I'm gonna play Donkey Kong Country, and then Mom, I want to play Donkey Kong Land, and then I want to play Donkey Kong Country 2, and then Donkey Kong Country 3, and so on. Like, so I didn't get to really experience like, oh, this was, the state of the Donkey Kong games at this point, and then like this became part of the series or the franchise or the world or the lore, and then this got added because all of the like SNES DKC games kind of get jumbled together in my childhood because I was so young when I played them, but also I played them out of order. So this is the first time in my life I've really like comprehended to some degree what it was like back then if you were into these games and like you play, because I've been immersing myself so deeply in like thinking about only Donkey Kong Country. Like, we played the game, we read the manual, we looked at all the Nintendo Power coverage, we looked at the video, we looked at the comics. So like back when all that Donkey Kong Country was Donkey Kong Country, like just the first game, and then they added Donkey Kong Land, and then we get to go from that to Donkey Kong Country 2. And I had never really had this mindset before of like, this is what it would be like to not know anything more about this series or the future of it or what it's going to contain than, Donkey Kong Country. And then gradually having more and more get added on. Like, it's been really cool to like, in real time sort of experience like, oh man, this must have been so cool back in the day to go from like, not knowing much about the Kremlings to like, oh, this is their homeland, and where they have a greater focus on their piratical activities and stuff, because again, that's something I had grown up with and something that I had always just kind of taken for granted since I was like 5 or 6 years old, so I never really had to consciously think about it that much. It's just always something that's been there. But it's been cool to immerse myself in the 90s this deeply, because I was just a little kid then. I was alive, but I wasn't really like aware of a lot of, I didn't have Nintendo Power. I never have had a subscription to Nintendo Power in my life. I didn't really even get a chance to look at these magazines growing up. Like, I didn't really know anyone who had a subscription, or we didn't have like a local video game store or magazine rack or whatever where I could go look at them. So I'm seeing a lot of this, and like a lot of the whole 90s play it loud tude for the first time in my life, like actually getting to really focus on that in a deep way, because I never have. But that's been just really cool, and it's going to be interesting to go to Donkey Kong Country 3, because again, that was like the first one that I actually owned, and I played it like very, very soon after DKC. So now that we've been so focused on the first 2 games to go, and it is a kind of big like leap as far as like gameplay and tone goes, and this is the first time in my life that I've ever really like had to reckon with that in this amount of depth. Yo, Beepo logged on, thank you. Wow. Thank you, Victor. But I'm gonna have to take another break here real quick, because today my body has decided it has to go to the bathroom like all the time. But if you have, before we finish up this little special yap session, if you have any questions that you want to ask me about, this project or my experience with the Donkey Kong Country series, or just like anything, just go ahead. You can ask me and I'll answer them when I get back. And then, if there's not too much else to talk about, we can wrap up pretty soon. Actually, I'll tell you what, I think I have to probably go take my dog on a little walk, so I might not be back for maybe like 5-10 minutes or so, but I will see you then. Now that Beepo's back, I should be able to actually put up my BRB screen, so think of some questions to ask me while I'm gone, and enjoy the music, and I will see you in a few minutes. Yo, Nagi, holy moly! Thank you so much. I appreciate that a ton. I know these people. Most of them. That is awesome of you. I really appreciate it. More little K-Rool icons for everyone. Thank you, Wonderbit. Okay, so my favorite revelation on this series so far, I was thinking about that for a second before I went back on, because there's a lot of them, and yes, there's a lot of like really silly ones, looking at like the magazines and the player's guides and stuff. There's like a lot of little silly turns of phrase and stuff, like holy crocomole, and K-Rool's like big booty that the player's guide made sure to call out how large his ass was and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like really silly like inside jokes and stuff that we can now reference, but on a more like, why does my music keep stopping? On a more like serious note, I guess. Hang on a sec. Thank you, Nagi. Yeah, so I was gonna talk about the concept art, because a lot of that I hadn't looked at in a long time, and I hadn't looked at some of it in like real depth, even though a lot of it has been posted for like years. But coming back to it with what we know now, like the concepts they had for some of the early plots of Donkey Kong Country the like weird bonanza foreshadowing of there being some like ancient evil hidden in the earth that the villain was trying to like unlock. It's crazy because again, I find it very hard to believe that like the devs of Bonanza were looking at Greg Mails's concept art from back in the day, but that has to just be like a coincidence, and it's like kind of an archetypal story, you know. But unless like there's also some record of those ideas that's been left over in like the Nintendo offices as well, or it's like some kind of, it became some part of like unused like series Bible sort of thing, where they keep track of like all the ideas they had for past games that never actually came to fruition. But like there were some weird parallels in there for sure that were pretty crazy if they were just coincidences. But yeah, if you want to join my Discord server and you just gotta sub, if you link your Twitch account to your Discord account, it should show up for you, I believe, automatically. After a while, it sometimes takes up to like an hour or so to sync. But yeah, so I think some of my favorite revelations so far would be just like looking in depth at some of that concept art and the stuff we learned from that. And especially like considering, you know, maybe the Bonanza foreshadowing is just a coincidence, but considering that some like ideas that they didn't get to use initially did come back up, like some of the early Kremling ideas they had, you know, for DKC did end up getting used in like Donkey Kong Country 3 or even Donkey Kong 64 or something like that. And then of course like reading the novelizations and the comics and stuff has been fun because there's been some really like unexpected stuff in there. Like that one comic that had the random like giant Kremling who just isn't explained. Obviously that stuff is like not really canon to the games probably, but there's some fun stuff in there still. Simian sense of course, but we already knew about that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm basically just kind of like constantly learning things while we're doing this series, and it's been fun. Another fun like revelation, the Kongs are the, you know, people always call out the Kremlings for their pollution, but the Kongs are the ones pissing and shitting up the pools and the oceans all the time. But just, you know, when we're talking about like the specific purview of this project in particular, looking at these old magazines about Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2 and stuff, and seeing how much the Kremlings were at the forefront of the like coverage and the advertisements and stuff. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, this game is all about Kong and here's Kong and Kong's family and look at these awesome gorillas who are cool and the gorillas are doing cool monkey things. No, they gave so much like time and attention and, you know, imagery and stuff to the villains, and they were like very much a part of the marketing and the you know, like hype cycle for these games, to the extent that I have felt, oh, you don't have to have nitro, you like I said, it just takes a while to sync. Sometimes it might not show up for you for like an hour or so, but it should eventually just show up, I guess, on the sidebar for you. You'll know which one is my server when it pops up. You'll know it when you see it, but like, you know, I've said this before many times, but when I was a kid, Donkey Kong Country games was as much about the Kremlings as it was about the Kongs to me. But, you know, I was always recognizing that as like, well, yeah, that's just because you're a weirdo, Courtney. Like, obviously, it's about the Kongs. It's not really about the Kremlings. But the more I do this series, the more I notice who really has more detail in the world building and the history and the lore actually given to them, and the greater sense of like mystery and all that in at least the early Super Nintendo games, and it's the Kremlings. It is. So I feel like I've been really like validated in my weird little niche fandom interests that I've had for my whole life by looking at this old stuff. It wasn't just like some random thing that I picked up on as a kid because I was a weirdo. It was like a very real phenomenon. And that was extending to Rare's side as well, because as we know, they originally had these crocodile villain aliens for a completely different project, and that project did not come to fruition. But they were so dedicated to not let them just completely vanish, and they were dedicated to using them in something. They eventually made their way into Donkey Kong Country, and the rest is history. So they also were obsessed with them and did not want to give up on them. So, but yeah, if you have any more questions, I do really want to get the Bonanza streams up on YouTube, but I actually recorded them all locally, and they're in like really high quality, and so I need to decide if I want to upload them in the high quality that I'll have to like split them up, because I have the sessions saved that are like 5 hours long or more for each session, and I'll have to like split them up a lot, otherwise they're going to be too big to upload or to process or anything, because that game is kind of a bitrate killer, so like saving it in like maximum quality is gonna be like murder for like how big the files actually are. They're huge. That is something that I don't know, Andre. And something that I've always been curious about, and to my knowledge, has not ever been discussed in like an interview or anything. I mean, if anyone knows, you can let me know. But my guess is that it is kind of like a little it's like a Russianism, like it's a Cold War hangover or something, that was like post hoc rationalized to mean something else, where they were supposed to be from the island of Krim, which is their, one of the concept art things, but eventually that was also not even really explained, since we know that their island is just called Crocodile Isle. But okay, first of all, I was just like emailing back and forth with Steve Mails about a commission, and I didn't want to bother him with like all my questions. I didn't meet Steve Mails in person. I did meet Kev Bayless, and I could have asked Kev Bayless, I suppose. Maybe I'll meet him again someday if he goes to another con in my area, but I should have asked more questions in that, but I'm always like, if I ever do get to meet somebody that I admire or get the chance to interact with someone I admire, I try to not like be too annoying. Like, I'm always like really self-conscious. Like, I don't want to come off as like too much of a like crazy fan. Like, although I was like, I was to some extent like nervous and shy. Like, my body and my demeanor is gonna give me away to some extent, even if I'm like trying to play it cool. But I don't want to be like super in their face and be like, "You changed my life! Oh my god!" So I try to be like as complimentary and like, "Oh my gosh, your art means so much to me" or whatever, without being like super like unhinged about it. I don't know. It's like a difficult thread, a difficult balance, and I guess I don't want to be like too annoying trying to like mine for questions, but if I get another chance, there's definitely a few things I should try to be like, look, I'm a Kremling scholar, I'm a researcher, so sorry to be annoying, but I need to know this information if you have it, Yeah, I'm pretty sure like when I talked to Grant Kirkhope, I was like probably like shaking at first, but I actually got to talk to him for quite a while, so I calmed down once I got a little more into it, but what's a stream I'm looking forward to? I'm kind of looking forward to the GBA games quite a bit, because I've only played DKC3 on the GBA, and I got that one because of how like different it was, the different soundtrack and the new world and stuff. So I actually never had a GBA, and so I retroactively, once I got a DS, I got some GBA games like Superstar Saga and DKC3 GBA, and really not that many. I don't own that many GBA games. But that was the only one I really wanted to get because, it was so different from the SNES game. I thought I would benefit the most from playing that one. But I've never played DKC or DKC2 on the GBA, so I'm kind of interested to see what's different about them, because I know, like, some things that are different, like the stupid cutscene at the end of DKC2 and like kerosene and everything, but I've never actually like played them, so there's like probably lots of really minor differences that I know they have like different sound effects and little details that were added here and there, but maybe there's like something really interesting in them that's different, or that kind of like reveals like something that we didn't get to see in the SNES games that actually is really interesting that I've just never heard about it because it's not one of the big things that people would bring up. So I'm looking forward to those. And then the other games that I've never played, even if they're kind of like not really like Donkey Kong games per se, but like Mario Party 7, and I've only ever played like a teeny bit of Strikers, so Strikers and its sequel are going to be fun. Basically anything that I've never played before is what I'm looking forward to the most, I think. And of course the Bonanza revisit, but that's going to be the very end, so I'm not really looking forward to that because that'll be like the end and I'll be sad. But, in itself, I am looking forward to it. I mean, obviously I'm playing Bonanza all the time for the Emerald Rush events, but going through the whole game again, I'm going to try to not, like, replay it until we get to it again so that it'll be sort of a little magical revisit where we, I've only ever seen some of this stuff once when I was playing it the first time, but it's gonna, I want to replay the game because it's such a good game, and it's going to be hard to wait that long, I think, but I'll see if I can make it, I always have too much other stuff going on. I think it shouldn't be too hard. Sorry, just a sec. What I would really like is to get to talk to, like, Greg Mails someday, but he is, I know, like, a pretty private person. I don't think he really does cons or anything like that. And I don't even really think he does, like, interviews too often. But especially now that he's retired, he probably, maybe he'll do more of that type of stuff, or maybe not, but, I especially don't think he comes to the United States that often or anything, but... Yeah, I actually found out that we're probably planning on going on a big trip in October, so for the Halloween content this year, we're going to need to get started a little early so that Halloween will maybe be a little more of a September thing, so I have time to actually do some Halloween stuff this year. We should, of course, be back in time for actual Halloween and the Ghoulies playthrough and everything, but... Okay, well, I don't know if you had any other questions in mind that you wanted to ask me, but if not, then I will get to work on preparing the, like, new chapter announcement, and we will get started on Donkey Kong Country 3 next week, I believe, so plan for it next Saturday. Now, the thing about DKC3 is I'm not going to do it in one session, because that game is a little more slower paced than the first two to begin with. It just takes me longer to get through by quite a large margin. But not only that, it has a lot more, like, text and NPC interactions and stuff in it, and much like DKC2, I do want to read all of the, like, text in the game. So we're gonna be talking to a lot of bears, and a lot of that stuff I haven't read in, like, 20 years, and with that, it's going to take much longer. So I do not plan on trying to get through the DKC3 instruction manual and the entire game in one day. We're gonna split that up into, like, probably 2. But we'll get started on it probably next Saturday the 6th, unless something comes up. Yeah, we need to get Wrinkly's hot takes on Super Mario 64. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country 3 is going to be fun because, like I've said, that is the first DK game that I actually owned, and so it's very special to me for all of its, like, weirdnesses and quirks, and for all the Kremlings are kind of ugly in that game, but it's still very special to me. And like I said, because we've been so heavily immersed in the first two games, it's going to be kind of weird to go to a little bit of the tonal shift in the, different directions that... But here's the thing. I gotta do some research, because over the next week, I really gotta get to listening and reading to some stuff, because, like, I know that DKC3 was made by a lot of different people. There's probably some overlap between the teams, but in large part, the teams and the people that had made Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2 were already moving on to working on Banjo-Kazooie. So really, Banjo-Kazooie is the true sequel to DKC2, which is why I love it so much, but DKC3 was sort of being handled by, like, a different team that, they passed the DK series on. Greg Mayles went on to work on Banjo-Kazooie, and a bunch of the artists and designers also were working on BK. Project Dream, which became Banjo-Kazooie. So there's a lot about DKC3's development that I don't really know that well. So I'm going to see what I can learn about it in the meantime, that we can, so I can come into it, like, more informed than I've ever been. But yeah, I gotta get on that and listen to a lot of stuff over the next week. But yeah. Grunty's huge ass is always being called out to by her sister, mainly. It's a important plot point. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this summer. I'm gonna try to stream a lot, and we have a long journey ahead of us. We're basically still just getting started. Thank you so much again for all the gift subs, Noggy Boy, and for anyone else who subbed or has big watch streaks or whatever. I am going to jump off and get to work on some stuff that I need to work on. It's been a fun, like 2.5 hours of just talking. Like, it's pretty good. I was estimating between like 2 and 3 hours that this would last. So, I think it went pretty well. For coming into it with absolutely no real plan, because, like I said, I had some things I wanted to talk about, but I didn't make notes or anything, so I was just counting on myself to remember them. I'm sure as soon as I stop streaming, I'll remember some, like, subject I wanted to bring up where I was like, God damn it, I didn't talk about it, but that's what we have entire... I want to do one of these little podcast episodes, maybe not at the end of every chapter, but, like, maybe every 2 chapters or so we will keep having these little Croc Talk sessions in the future to check in on how things are going. But I finally get to raid Muck, who has been playing Fallout New Vegas, and I've been watching him a lot recently, but I finally get to return the favor and raid someone who always raids me, because I am actually streaming in the daytime, so usually by the time I stop streaming at night, everybody's already asleep, so... But, yeah, I don't know if I want to, like, when I upload this to YouTube, I don't know if I want to call it the Kremversation or Croc Talk or the Crocversation or whatever. I should probably just call it Croc Talk because, okay, first of all, hold on a second. I should probably just call it Croc Talk because that feels like the least like I'm ripping off DK Vine. As we talked about earlier, I don't really want to rip off DK Vine. Sorry, when I opened up Muck's stream, there is a, like, one of those ads where it, like, kind of borders the Twitch stream instead of replacing it. It's an ad for Hanky Panky, introducing the world's most comfortable thong. Now you may say, is this based on like what I've been looking at on Amazon? Is it like an Amazon ad? I don't think so. I don't buy underwear from Amazon, so I don't know. But Muck is he has ladies underwear like bordering him right now, so that's pretty funny. But oh my god, Pi, you got here just as I was talking about raiding Muck and his ad that he was getting of women's underwear. Hi, how's it going, everybody? You were you playing some just Ironmon today, or for some Pokemon Champions? I have literally just been doing a just chatting stream today. We've just been talking about this project that I do. So I guess I can tell all the raiders about it before I log off, but if they didn't all get scared away from the underwear conversation that I was just having, but this is one of those raids of all time right before I'm about to stop streaming. Yeah, my category is retro because I don't want to actually put it on just chatting because I feel like that's going to attract a lot of weirdos. I don't know, I'm kind of scared of the just chatting category. That's where they're going to be looking for, like, hot tub streamers and stuff, so I didn't want to use that one. I thought about putting it, like, on Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong Country 2 or something, but I thought that would be a little too deceptive, I don't know, so I just put it on retro. That retro is, like, a good catch-all category for you're doing something related to old games and you don't necessarily want to have to swap around and stuff, but yeah, exactly. So, anyway, hello Raiders, I'm Alter, and I am, you may know me as the wife of Abscond with the Pie, but, I stream a lot of Donkey Kong stuff, because that's my favorite game series of all time. I also stream a lot of Pokemon stuff. The Pokemon stuff has normally been, like, really late night recently, and I do it just kind of when I feel like it and casually. We've been doing Pokemon Stadium challenges, and we've been doing, I refuse to play Pokemon Champions as of yet, because I just don't want to. But I've been playing Pokemon Stadium, and soon we're going to be playing Pokopia. I've been playing Pokopia on my own for, like, a couple months, and I play it every day, and I've reached the point where I want to build some cool stuff, but I want to have an audience while I do it. So soon we'll get started with that, and I have some stuff in mind that I want to build, and I think it'd be fun to have people watching while I do that, and it'll be a nice chill time. Yeah, well, you know, I actually pronounce his name correctly, but, like, I don't know, like, pronouncing it Abson, that's like a special thing, you know, like, I'm just his wife, you know, I don't have the privilege of referring to him incorrectly. No, it's kind of interesting that, you know, I always just call him Victor, but when he talks about me on stream, he calls me Alter a lot of the time. Sometimes he says Courtney, but to me, he's always just Victor, so if I ever mention Victor, if you didn't know that Victor and Abscond are the same person, yes. You know, Cat's kind of out of the bag on, like, using our like, real names, because we've been doing that on the internet for, like, pretty much our entire lives, so there's a degree of anonymity that we don't have that a lot of streamers do have, but yeah, so basically what I have been doing for the past 6 months is I am doing a project that I do pretty much every weekend, usually on Saturdays, sometimes on, like, Fridays, but usually on Saturdays, if I don't have anything else going on. It is called the Kremling Kronology. It is a project to play every game that has a Kremling in it. What is a Kremling, you ask, because you don't know. It is what K. Rool is. They are crocodile humanoids, and they were introduced in Donkey Kong Country, and they have been in many games since, and then there was a long lapse where they were not in any games at all. And spoiler alert, that is no longer the case. They have a bright future ahead of them. They are my favorite fictional species of all time, and I am doing a project dedicated to them. So there's a lot of games they've been in that people don't even know exist, like Donkey Kong King of Swing and Donkey Kong Jungle Climber, because nobody played those games except for, like, 5 people. And I played them on the Wii U Virtual Console, like, 8 years ago for the first time, of all things, but we are not only playing the games, we're looking at Nintendo Powers, comics, basically officially endorsed material that is related to those games, and it's been kind of like a fandom research project. It's been a lot of fun. And I just spent the past, like, 2.5 hours basically doing a meta conversation about the project and the things I've learned from it so far, both in terms of, like, actually learning about the niche fandom stuff, but also just in a wider sense, like, what I've learned from doing a fan project like this in the first place, like, as a content creator and as a, like, fan of niche interests, like, what doing a project like this has taught me. And it's been a really good, like, community building activity, and I've had a great time. And it's been a fucking terrible year for me. It's been, you know, I've had personal grief that I've been dealing with, health issues and stuff, but this project has been the bright spot in it. So if any of that nerdy ass stuff interests you whatsoever, I hope you will join us for the future. Yeah, we've been watching, you know, very 90s. I wonder if there's any, like, we should look into commercials. That's something we haven't really looked at. We looked at the DKC Exposed promo video, but there's also, like, both English and Japanese like commercials for the games that we haven't really looked at. That's something we should do. We need to do a commercial, like a whole session where we just go through like the commercials for the DKC series and the Donkey Kong Land series. That's really good. That's a blind spot that we haven't done. So that is something we'll do in the future. Probably once we're done with the SNES trilogy and the Land trilogy. That would be a good thing to do. By the way, when we get to Diddy Kong Racing, there's like gonna be so much. There's like, Diddy Kong Racing was a big deal. There's going to be a lot of like comics and promo materials that go along with that. Like, that game was like promoted to heck, and there was a lot of like extra supplementary. I'm surprised there's like not an official novelization of it, but there is like several like mangas and comic adaptations of it at least. So, yeah, but anyway. Yeah, the DKC3 commercials that all implied that, like, Kiddy Kong was, like, the hottest shit. Like, he was, like, a cool, rebellious teenager instead of a literal toddler, because they didn't want to admit that this was a game about a literal toddler. So, that's gonna be fun. But, yeah, I really didn't have much else to talk about, and I'm starting to get to the point where I'm kind of, like, all talked out for the day, and getting a little tired and I need to go make dinner soon. So before I got the raid, I was about to raid into my friend Muck1000, who you also may know. So I'm gonna do that now. But if you're interested in like fandom research projects and Donkey Kong and Pokemon, you might enjoy my stream. If you're interested in the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2, you might enjoy my husband Victor Abscond with the Pies stream. He's gonna be playing Gregory Horror Show soon, TM. Hopefully, maybe he'll actually start it like tomorrow or something. We might be playing DK64 Randomizer tomorrow together, but if he doesn't want to do that, then he might start Gregory Horror Show. You know what? I'm gonna represent my husband right now. I'm going to link his stream. You should follow him. He's doing it's called the PlayStation Rotation, and he's playing a bunch of PlayStation 1 and 2 games for the first time. And if you want to, if you watch his stream enough, you can add a game to the wheel that he spins every time he beats a game. He selects a new game. And not only can you add a game, but you can also, like, add likelihood. You know, you can use channel points to, like, add likelihood to a game. So we have put a bunch of, like, greater possibility, for instance, that Kingdom Hearts is going to get rolled, but it still hasn't been rolled yet. But if you want to force him to play Kingdom Hearts, which he will absolutely hate, I can guarantee it, you can do that. But yeah, Muck is playing known good game. Why am I'm getting like a, why is Muck like getting ads on the side of his stream that are like exclusively women's underwear? Because now I'm getting like a bra ad. This is ridiculous. I mean, to be fair, I do need to go, like, shopping for some basics like that, but, like, I don't know, is Amazon reading my mind? I haven't talked about that anywhere. It's a little creepy. Like, how does Amazon know? Anyway, go say hi to Muck. He's playing Fallout, and I will be back, sometime, maybe tomorrow. If not, then sometime next week to do some more random Pokemon stuff, and we'll be starting Donkey Kong Country 3 a week from today. So, thank you. It's been a fun time. But I gotta go. I got some stuff to take care of this evening, so thanks for chilling.